Well, we are so honored today to have Danielle Strickland with us. Danielle is a Canadian. She's a leader. She's a speaker. She's a peacemaker. She's an advocate and a social justice champion, and she cares about transformation. Danielle, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Oh, hey, it's a great joy to be with you.
Well, Danielle, everything I see and I listen to you, I follow you on Instagram. I've learned so much from you. You love the word transformation. You care about individuals and communities being transformed. Why do you care so much? Where does that come from?
I think it's a mixture of frustration and inspiration. So, frustration in trying to help change happen, both individually, both even in my life and other people's lives, sort of trying to get them out of patterns of behavior. So, I've worked for many, many years in inner cities and different countries and with people who struggle from addictions and young people who struggle with anxiety and depression and just really frustrated at the lack of transformation I've seen, and then also inspired by people that have seen transformation and places that experience transformation. And then, of course, in my life, through even my experience with Jesus, feeling and knowing the transformation that can come. So that mixture of frustration and inspiration really leads me to want, to yearn for, to be hungry for more people to encounter transformational change.
And transformational change, you're not talking about behavior management here. You're talking about truly life change. And that's what Amplified Peace, as I'm following you on Instagram, that initiative that you're leading the charge on. I'm loving learning from you, Danielle. You share on Instagram right now, and obviously in other ways, this transformational tree model. Tell us where you've discovered it. Give us the backstory, and then I look forward to teaching our viewers about what this transformational tree model is.
Yeah, so one of the things about peacekeeping, or peacemaking, is it's often confused with peacekeeping. So peace, sort of understood through the scriptural lens, through Jesus, is the presence of justice and wholeness and right relationship. And I think too often we always think of peace as the absence of conflict, so we just keep the peace, which means you don't speak up or don't, address things that need to be addressed. But actually peacemaking, which is what Jesus invites us to, is to offer some wholeness and offer some transformational opportunities. So on this pilgrimage, one of the things Amplify Peace does is it takes people on these pilgrimages, these immersions that are global immersions of places and people who have experienced, extreme conflict and have somehow figured out a way forward and a way to heal from those wounds. And one of those places was Rwanda. And Lisa Jernigan, the co-founder of Amplify Peace, and I were in Rwanda, and we were looking at communities that had experienced incredible transformation. And we were asking the question, how did you do this? And so I met Pastor Emmanuel in this region in Rwanda, and he talked about how a bunch of leaders got together and started to use this tree model to bring transformation, and they reduced domestic violence in the region. So this is several communities, several towns. They reduced the domestic violence rate by 68%, which if ever,
Wow.
domestic violence is one of those cycles, isn't it? Both for victims and for
Yeah.
perpetrators that just seems so frustrating when you work in those situations to break. And here this man was telling me they broke this and we're continuing to break this through this transformational tree model. So of course I was all ears. I'm like, tell me how did you do this?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm inspired by not just the model, but the story. So I know we only have a few minutes, but give us the four, parts of the tree, how we can learn it, and just illustrate this for us, because I think this matters to all of us.
Yeah, I think most of us are tired of what I would call behavioral change management, which is just this idea that somehow, I mean, if anyone's ever tried a diet, we understand, the frustration that this not only might work for like a tiny bit, but it doesn't actually transform us, and it doesn't it doesn't last. And so we get a little bit depressed about the lack of change in our lives. So this is going a little bit deeper than that. So there's 4 steps really quickly. The first one is to identify the fruit in your life you're not proud of. So that would be, what are the results that you're not proud of? And Pastor Emmanuel, what was powerful about this is that he himself was stuck in this domestic violence cycle, like most of the people in Rwanda. And so he, when he was going through his own personal transformation, he addressed that. He said, you know what? He told me, this is how he said it to me. He said, Rwanda is hot, but my house was ice cold. That the environment in his house was just so tense and cold, and he didn't like the family fruit. He didn't like what was going on. So first step is to identify that. And that sounds super simple, except that we are wired as humans not to look at the things we don't want to see. You know, we want to hide that. We want to take that fruit and bury it somewhere. So that's a pretty courageous first step to get to. And then, of course, to trace the results to the behaviors. So the branch of the tree are the behaviors. So what are you doing or not doing that's producing this result you're not proud of? And that's usually where most change behavioral management theories end. And it's important, it's just not where it ends. So he was able to trace, oh, I see, I'm like barking at my kids, I'm angry all the time, I'm beating my wife. You know, so this is creating this terrible fruit in this family. So then the tree, transformation tree goes on and says, okay, besides the behavior, what's feeding the behaviors? What are the values and priorities? So they say that's like the trunk of the tree of your life. What are the values? What are the priorities that are feeding that behavior that are producing these results? So for him, he said, you know, I valued authority. I valued respect. You know, I valued being the guy in charge. Like I valued control. Those were my top values. So that's what was driving my behavior towards my family, which was producing this bad fruit. So then again, let's go deeper still. And the deepest place to go if you want true transformation, no matter what it is that you're trying to break the cycle of, is underneath the surface of things. There's a hidden root system, or what this training would say, your hidden belief system. What are you believing? And that is the ultimate, that's the root system of transformation. What are you believing that is feeding your priorities, that is then driving your behaviors, that's producing this result? And he realized when he was doing this training, he prayed about it and he waited there and he kind of wrestled with this. Takes a little bit of time to uproot those false belief systems. But he instantly remembered a conversation he had with his dad. And his dad told him when he was 12 years old what a man was. And he said, to be a man that's respected in the community means you need to be in absolute control of your house. Your children should fear you. Your wife should respect you and do what you say. And he realized that that conversation rooted a belief that was at the, you know, was at the hidden bottom of everything else that drove him. And so he uprooted that belief and he said, I actually asked myself, is it true? I know that my dad said it, but is it true? And he compared it to lives that he respected, men that he respected in the community that had beautiful family lives. And most importantly for him, he compared it to Jesus, you know, who is the ultimate example of what it means to be a man. And he realized that it wasn't true. And so he replaced the belief system with true belief. That to be a man meant to value relationships. It meant to serve and not to be in control. You know, it meant to actually value connection and intimacy over, you know, those other things that he previously valued. And he said that his family has completely transformed. And what was really amazing about it is everybody in the community that could see that came to him and said, what have you done? And he said, here, let me tell you, your life is a tree. And this began to just, you know, just catch on until so many families experienced their own transformation.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot. We're going to I chew on this for a while. We need 10 more interviews. But before we wrap up here, tell us, all of us are facing something in our life, whether it's personal, we want transformation in, whether it's in the communities that we live in. I mean, we're living in a country that needs transformation. What do you say to our viewer that could be a next step for them?
Yeah, I think to actually pay attention to whatever stage you tend to say that's enough. So I think it takes a lot of courage to do any of it. So I would say muster the courage to even start at step one, to look at the things either in your life or in your country that are not okay, and then start doing the work. I wish there was a magic pill I wish God would
Yeah.
just sprinkle fairy dust down from heaven and ta-da. And I think that's a narrative we believe for a long time. But God wants to
Yeah.
co-labor with us. He wants to partner with us. And to do that requires us to be willing to do the work. So I would
Yeah.
say, have the courage. Don't be afraid. God is in this. This is all taken from Luke chapter 6. Of course, Jesus himself saying, your
Yeah.
life is like a tree, and he wants you to bear good
Yeah.
fruit. So don't be afraid. And he has a transformation in mind for you because he wants you to live your very best life.
Yeah. Oh, well, amen to all of that. And I just encourage people, if you want to know more, go to daniellestrickland.com. I mean, really get serious about asking. The change does begin with us. One person, right, Danielle? We can make the change in our lives even today. So take to heart what Danielle shared with you. And now check out Veronica's story because she moves from an atheist into finding the answer for her life. Thank you, Danielle. Really appreciate you.
Great to be with you.